In the age before the ash storms swallowed the eastern kingdoms, there stood a city of red stone and black iron called Veyr Marrak. Its towers were not built upward, but inward. Every palace had cellars deeper than its spires were high. Every temple had wells beneath its altars. Every noble house kept ledgers not of coin, grain, or land, but of blood. Veyr Marrak believed that life was a debt. A child owed blood to the mother who bore it. A soldier owed blood to the king who armed him. A slave owed blood to the master who fed him. A prisoner owed blood to the judge who spared him a cleaner death. The city's priests taught that no wound was meaningless. Each cut was a signature, each death a payment, each heartbeat a coin spent against the endless hunger of the world. At the center of this belief stood the Crimson Exchequer, an order of flesh scholars, surgeons, and accountants of pain. They wore white robes stained pink from washing. Their fingers were covered in rings made from bone. Their ledgers were bound in human skin, and every page was written with names. Among them, none was more feared than High Chirurgeon Mael Varrun. He did not shout, he did not torture for pleasure. He did not rage when a subject died too early beneath his instruments. He merely sighed, crossed out the name, and wrote,
"Yield insufficient."
To Mael Varrun, cruelty was not an emotion. It was a discipline. The kings of Veyr Marrak had a problem. Their armies were strong, but mortal. Their slaves were many, but fragile. Their prisoners died quickly beneath labor. Their gladiators bled beautifully in the pits, but beauty did not win wars. Beyond the city walls, the salt plague was spreading. It turned rivers bitter and made wounds bloom with black veins. Men who survived battle would rot from a scratch. Women who gave birth would fever before dawn. Even the strongest warriors began to fear not the sword, but the sickness that followed it. The king summoned the Crimson Exchequer and gave them one command.
Find the weakness in death and make it serve us.
Many scholars proposed tonics. Others proposed sacrifices. Some suggested breeding stronger slaves, others grafting beasts to men. Mael Varrun proposed something different.
Life resists death,
He said,
not through purity, through hunger. The body clings to itself. Strike it, and it seals. Starve it, and it devours its own fat. Poison it, and it learns bitterness. The living are not weak because they bleed.
He lifted a thin silver knife and placed it across his palm.
They are weak because their blood only serves them.
The king leaned forward. Mael closed his fist around the blade and cut deep. Blood ran down his wrist.
If blood could be taught loyalty,
He said,
then every wound dealt to an enemy could repay the soldier. Every corpse left behind could become ration, balm, and blessing.
The court fell silent. The king smiled.
Then teach it.
Mael began with condemned prisoners. He chained them in circles beneath the Crimson Exchequer and gave them dull knives. Around their necks he hung simple amber pendants, each carved with a hollow chamber no larger than a thumbnail. Inside each chamber he placed a clot of royal blood, dried into a dark red pearl. Then the prisoners were ordered to fight. At first, nothing happened. They stabbed, screamed, slipped, begged. The floor grew slick. The amber pendants warmed but did not awaken. Men died in the old way, wasting their blood into the stones. Mael watched from above, unmoving.
Again,
He said. For 30 nights the experiment failed. On the 31st, a prisoner named Helka drove a broken blade into another man's ribs. As the wounded man shrieked, Helka's own cuts began to close. His bruised lips filled with color. His shaking arms steadied. The amber at his throat pulsed once, like a second heart. Mael descended into the pit. He ordered the others held back. Helka, half mad with fear, raised his weapon. Mael allowed the prisoner to strike him across the cheek. The wound opened. The pendant pulsed. Helka gasped as strength flooded into him again. Mael touched the blood running from his own face and smiled.
So it listens to violence.
He whispered. The first principle was written into the crimson ledger. Blood may be recovered through the wound one gives. But the pendant was unstable. Its gift came only during struggle. When Helka killed his opponent, the pulse stopped. When he wounded, he lived. When he finished, he weakened. Mael saw not failure, but incompletion.
There are two hungers,
He said.
the hunger of the blade and the hunger of the grave.
The next chamber was built lower than the first. No windows, no torches, no witnesses, except Mael and his chosen assistants. This time, the prisoners were not made to fight. They were made to kill. Some were given sleeping enemies. Some were given bound animals. Some were given friends. Some were given strangers whose faces were hidden under cloth. The amber pendants were altered. The royal cloth within each chamber was mixed with grave ash, venom, and the powdered teeth of plague victims. Mael wanted the pendants to understand death, not as an ending, but as a transaction. On the seventh night, the second hunger woke. A woman named Sirai was ordered to cut the throat of a man she had never met. She did so with shaking hands. When the man died, her fever vanished. The black veins around her wrists faded. Her sunken cheeks lifted as if invisible wine had filled her. The pendant drank the moment of death and returned it to the killer. Mael recorded the second principle.
Blood may be recovered through the life one ends.
But again, the artifact was flawed. When the pendant fed on death, it refused wounds. When it fed on wounds, it refused death. Its hunger turned like a wheel, loyal to one appetite, then the other. 5 breaths for violence, 5 breaths for slaughter. Then again, the assistants called it a defect. Mael called it rhythm.
A heart has 2 motions.
He told them,
It closes, it opens, it takes, it gives. Why should an artifact of blood behave differently?
He took the most responsive pendant and broke the others. Then he began to craft the final piece. The chosen amber was not mined. It was grown. For 1 year, Mael suspended it inside a vat of warm blood taken from soldiers, slaves, nobles, murderers, healers, and children. He believed an obedient artifact required a complete education. It had to know all blood. Noble blood, sick blood, fearful blood, willing blood. Blood spilled for duty, blood spilled for hunger, blood spilled by accident. Around the amber he forged a rim of black iron, quenched in plague water. Across the rim he carved 10 marks. 5 were shaped like open wounds, 5 were shaped like closed eyes. At the back he set a hook of bone taken from Helka, the first man who had lived by striking. At the center he sealed a shard of Ciri's last breath, captured when she was executed after the experiments ended. The completed medallion was ugly. It was too heavy for its size. Its amber core looked dark and wet, as if blood were always moving inside it. When held near a flame, shadows within it seemed to tighten like fingers. Mael named it the Titheheart Medallion, not because it gave life freely, because it collected what life owed. The king demanded a demonstration. Mael placed the medallion around the neck of a wounded gladiator named Arven Krail. The man had been chosen because he was strong, loyal, and dying from the soul plague. His veins were black, his hands trembled, his breath rattled like stones in a cup. 10 prisoners were released into the arena with blades. The crowd expected him to die quickly. Instead, Arven struck the first prisoner across the jaw. The medallion pulsed. His breath steadied. He took a spear through the thigh, but when his axe split another man's shoulder, the wound in his own leg tightened. For 5 heartbeats, every strike fed him. Then the pulse changed. The amber darkened. His next blow killed a prisoner outright, and Arven roared as the plague retreated from his veins. He killed another, and strength flooded his limbs. Another, and his eyes cleared. For 5 heartbeats, every death restored him. Then the cycle turned again. Wound, death, wound, death. The arena erupted. The king stood and raised both hands. Mael Varrun did not cheer. He watched the medallion. It was beating faster than Arven's heart. Arven Krail became the king's red champion. Where others wore banners, he wore the Titheheart. He was sent first against rebels, then plague tribes, then foreign armies. He fought where battle was thickest, because only there could the medallion feed properly. Skirmishes did little for it. Duels bored it. Assassinations starved it. But war made it sing. Men said Arven could not be killed. That was not true. He could be cut, pierced, burned, poisoned, and broken. He simply returned from each injury by giving injury back. He learned that medallion's rhythm better than any musician. When it hungered for wounds, he fought wide, striking as many enemies as possible without finishing them. He let his axe bite shallow. He let his shield bash teeth from mouths. He became a storm of pain. When it hungered for death, he narrowed. One throat, one skull, one heart. He killed with perfect economy, drinking the silence after each body fell. His soldiers began to count aloud around him.
Wound, wound, wound. Kill, kill, kill.
The chant spread across battlefields. Enemies learned to fear the 10th heartbeat most of all. But Arven changed. At first he slept poorly. Then he stopped sleeping. He ate little, claiming the dead left enough warmth in him. He no longer removed the medallion even to bathe. When servants tried to clean the blood from it, he broke one man's wrist and apologized without understanding why. One night, after a victory feast, Arven came to Mael Varrun privately.
The medallion speaks,
He said. Mael looked up from his ledger.
What does it say?
Arven's eyes were bright and bloodshot.
that I am wasting life when I am still.
Mael dipped his pen.
And do you believe it?
Arven hesitated. Outside, bells rang for the dead.
I do not know where its hunger ends and mine begins.
Mael wrote a new note in the margin of his ledger.
Extended use may dissolve distinction between bearer and instrument. Further observation required.
Then he told Arven to return to the front. Veyr Marrak's mistake was not cruelty. Cruelty had served it for centuries. Its mistake was arithmetic. The city counted blood for so long that the counted learnt the numbers. Slaves knew how much blood was taken from them each moon. Prisoners knew which houses bought corpses. Soldiers knew which wounds were valued and which were ignored. Mothers knew which children were taken for civic debt. Even the dead, some whispered, knew their names were being balanced in ledgers below the temples. The rebellion began not with fire, but with silence. One morning, the labor pits did not open. One afternoon, the palace kitchens served no meal. One evening, the arena gates remained shut because every handler had vanished. By midnight, the lower city rose. They wore chains as belts. They carried quarry hammers, butcher hooks, brick knives, and stolen surgical saws. They painted red lines across their throats to show they had already been counted as dead. The king sent Arven Krail. Mael warned against it.
The medallion feeds best in crowds.
The king said.
Let it eat.
So Arven descended into the lower city with 300 soldiers behind him. The rebels did not flee. They had studied his rhythm. For 5 heartbeats, they refused to let him wound them. They backed away, raised shields, gave ground. For 5 heartbeats, they denied him death. The wounded were dragged back. The dying were hidden behind bodies. Men and women threw themselves not at Arven, but at those around him, starving the medallion of clean payment. For the first time, the Titheheart faltered. Arven staggered. The plague that had never truly left him stirred beneath his skin. Then a child stepped forward. She was no older than 12. Around her neck hung a wooden disc carved to imitate the medallion.
Your heart counts wrong,
She said. Arven froze. The crowd parted behind her, revealing hundreds of people wearing wooden discs, clay discs, bone discs, false medallions, empty medallions. symbols of refusal. The child pointed at the amber on Arven's chest.
That one only knows taking.
Then she struck him with a stone. It was a small wound, almost nothing, but the medallion pulsed. Arven felt its hunger rise. The rebels saw it too. They understood. The Titheheart did not care whose blood paid the debt, only that blood was paid. The lower city surged. Not to kill Arven, to feed him until he burst. They cut him by inches, a scratch across the arm, a hook through the shoulder, a stone to the brow, a knife across the ribs. Every wound they gave him restored him. Every restoration forced the medallion to pull more deeply from its hidden reservoirs. Arven screamed as strength flooded him faster than his body could bear. His muscles tightened, his veins shone red through his skin. Old scars split open and sealed again. His heartbeat fell out of rhythm with the medallion's pulse. 5 heartbeats of wounds, then 5 heartbeats of death. But the rebels denied him death. They offered only injury. The Titheheart, unable to complete its tithe, began to drink from its bearer. Mael Varrun arrived at dawn, pushing through smoke and bodies with a surgeon's calm. He saw Arven kneeling in the street, surrounded by rebels who watched him with terrible patience. The Red Champion's armor had split. His axe lay broken. The medallion at his throat glowed like a coal inside a lung. Arven looked at Mael.
Take it off,
He begged. Mael stepped forward. The rebels allowed him through. For the first time in his life, the High Chirurgeon hesitated. He had built the medallion to exploit weakness. He had taught blood to obey hunger. He had made life into debt and death into revenue. Now the artifact had learnt its lesson too well. Mael reached for the clasp. The medallion opened, not physically. There was no hinge, no mouth, no seam. Yet everyone present felt something unfold. A hunger without body. A ledger without end. The Titheheart drank Mael Varrun's hand to the bone. He did not scream until it reached his elbow. Arven, with the last will that belonged to him alone, seized Mael and pulled him close. The medallion's chain snapped from his neck and wrapped around them both like a living vein. For 5 heartbeats it fed on wounds. For 5 heartbeats it fed on death. When the light faded, Arven Krail and Mael Varrun were gone. Only the medallion remained, lying in a circle of dry red dust. The child with the wooden disc picked it up with iron tongs.
What do we do with it?
Someone asked. The rebels looked toward the upper city, where the palaces of Veyr Marrak still stood. The child stared into the amber. Inside something pulsed once, then again. Patiently, hungrily,
Bury it beneath the tax hall.
she said.
Let the city pay itself back.
Veyr Marrak fell within 3 days. Not to an army, not to plague, not to famine. It collapsed under memory. The rebels opened the ledgers and read the names aloud in the streets. For every slave drained, a noble house was emptied. For every child taken, a temple bell was broken. For every prisoner carved, a surgeon's tools were melted into nails and driven into the doors of the Crimson Exchequer. Beneath the tax hall, they dug a narrow grave. The Titheheart Medallion was placed inside a box of black salt, wrapped in the torn pages of the blood ledgers. Above it, the rebels laid stones without names. No monument was raised, no warning was carved. They believed forgetting would starve it. They were wrong. The medallion did not need worship. It only needed the world to remain what it had always been. A place of wounds, a place of killing. A place where the living took from the dying and called it law. Hunger, justice, survival, duty, vengeance, or love. Centuries passed. Veyr Marrak became ruins. Its red towers cracked. Its wells filled with sand. Its temples sank into the earth. Travelers avoided the place, claiming that wounds healed too quickly there, and that dying men sometimes stood again with someone else's heartbeat in their chest. Then came a scavenger named Arven Krail. He entered the buried tax hall, searching for coins. He found no gold, only a black salt box beneath a floor of nameless stone. Inside lay an amber medallion rimmed with iron, dark and wet at its center. Orin lifted it. The chain slid around his fingers like something remembering skin. He should have dropped it. Instead, he felt warmth enter the cuts on his hands. Old bruises faded, his hunger vanished. Far below the ruins, something like a ledger opened. Orin smiled without knowing why, and from the amber came a rhythm. 5 heartbeats for wounds, 5 heartbeats for graves. Then again, always again. Those who later carried the artifact never knew its first maker. They did not know the city that counted blood, the surgeon who taught hunger, or the champion who begged to be freed from his own survival. They gave it many names: the Red Debt, the Wound Taker, the Heart that Collects. But the oldest surviving name is the one whispered by battlefield scavengers, plague duelists, pit fighters, and kings who fear death more than damnation. The Titheheart Medallion. It does not save the wearer, it balances them. Every wound must be answered, every death must be entered. And when there are no enemies left to pay the debt, the medallion turns inward and begins counting the blood of its owner.